republic for which nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Who has the first? Do you have the resolution?
Yes.
No. Oh.
Oh,
Who's got the resolution? You have it, Dot?
I have one.
To appoint?
No, you didn't bring that?
Nobody gave it to me.
I can just go back over there on that. Nope, for another week. Yes.
Okay.
Want to give the, yeah.
The first resolution, I thought this was a historic moment, but Amber reminds me that it's not. We've had two women on the board previously. In January, it'll be a historic moment because the majority of the board will be female. So this is the first resolution of the night. Whereas a vacancy exists on the town board of the town of Shelter Island. Now therefore be it resolved that Barbara Jean Ian Fuller is hereby appointed to serve as councilwoman of the town of Shelter Island for a term to expire on December 31st, 2021. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It can't be 2021.
2023.
2023.
No,
Thanks.
2021, because then she takes office.
And again, if anybody wants to get technical and ask, well, it hasn't been authorized by the Board of Elections. We're appointing. We could have appointed as soon as Mike Bebon resigned, but we were split on whether to appoint or to wait for the election. And because we were split, we waited for the election. So the election is over. BJ won, but it's not official yet. So we're appointing you. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
And we're waiting for the swearing in because I didn't have it with me. And I thought I had it and I thought she had it. Find it.
Just start right here.
Gotcha.
She needs to be good.
Councilman.
Yes.
Okay. Stand up, please.
I just
Wanna
want
go in the
to.
front?
Yeah, let's go in front.
Yeah, go in the front.
Yes.
Third day of December, 2021. I do solemnly swear
You solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of councilman
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of councilman
of the town of Shelter Island
of the town of Shelter Island
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thanks.
So as everybody knows, that's for the next 2 years, the remainder of Mike Bebound's term. So everybody realizes that. And when that term is done, BJ will be in position to know whether she's had enough or she'd like to go for 4 more years.
No more.
Okay, so BJ, you can start with the first resolution.
Okay, ready? Whereas vacancies exist on the Deer and Tick Committee, and whereas Dr. Josh Potter has expressed his willingness to serve the town on said committee, now therefore be it resolved that Dr. Josh Potter is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the Deer and Tick Committee for a term to expire on June 24, 2024. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye. Just a footnote, Dr. Potter was here for our meeting this week, so, and it was a nice addition to that meeting. Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to credit the funds received in the amount of $5,100 from the sale of the 2002 GM dump truck, VIN number 1GDJK34U F52 E208776 to the 2021 Highway DA 5130.246 account. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $870.05 $870.05 from the 2021 A 1355.491 Assessors Support Contracts account and $428.53 from the 2021 A 1330.484 Receiver of Taxes Office of Miscellaneous account to Car Business Services, Post Office Box 936715, Atlanta, Georgia, for 1-year copy of maintenance agreement for the term November 12th, 2021 through November 11th, 2022. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $406 to receiver of taxes Anne Marie Sedio from the 2021 A 1330.414 receiver of taxes postage account for the purchase of stamps. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $2,720 from the 2021 A 1330.476 receiver of taxes software accounts to Edmunds Gov Tech 301 Tilton Road, Northfield, New York 08225 for the annual software support maintenance fees for the period December 1, 2021 through November 30th, 2022. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved, the town board of the town of Shelter Island authorizes the Shelter Island Town Court to apply for a JCAP grant and the 2021-2022 grant cycle up to $30,000. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas sealed bids on the purchase of propane for the year 2022 were received by the town clerk's office until 3 p.m. on the 17th day of November 2021, at which time they were publicly opened and read aloud as follows. John's Gas Service, for each gallon delivered for the calendar year 2022, the differential would be 54 cents per gallon. And J.W. Picosi, for each gallon delivered for the calendar year 2022, differential would be a sum of 52 cents and not 52 and 9/10 cents per gallon. Now therefore be it resolved that the contract for the purchase of propane for the calendar year 2022 is hereby awarded to J.W. Picosi for the sum of the differential of 52.9 cents per gallon. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
whereas sealed bids on the purchase of fuel oil for the year 2022 were received by the town clerk's office until 3 p.m. on the 17th day of November 2021, at which time they were publicly opened and read aloud as follows. J.W. Picosi, Inc. For each gallon delivered for the calendar year 2022, the differential will be the sum of 0.549 cents per gallon. Now therefore be it resolved that the contract for the purchase of fuel oil for the calendar year 2022 is hereby awarded to J.W. Picosi, Inc., the sole bidder for the aforementioned price. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the annual meeting of the town board of the town of Shelter Island will be held at 1 p.m. prevailing time on the 28th of December 2021 for necessary transactions of the board. And be it further resolved that the organizational meeting for the year 2022 will be held at 1 p.m. on the 4th day of January 2022, Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas the South Ferry has requested a minor changes in their wetlands and special permits previously issued by this board. And whereas the board finds that such changes do not materially alter the underlying reasons for the need for the permits, now therefore be it resolved that the South Ferry special permit dated May 7th, 2021 is hereby amended as follows. A, remove all references to the plan dates from both the wetlands and special permit referenced above. B, the following shall be added as a condition to both the wetlands and special permit. All construction shall proceed as depicted on the site plan and elevations and floor plan of Matthew Sherman of Sherman Engineering and Consulting, dated October 21st, 2019, and last revised November 1st, 2021, based upon the survey of Michael Hemmer, LS, PC, dated December 4th, 2017, and last revised July 31st, 2018. All other terms shall remain as originally written. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is a resolution to transfer funds, which we usually do at the end of the year. $3,000 from A 8160.200 equipment to the A 8160.201 recycling center roof account. $15,000 from the A 8160.433 solid waste to the A 8160.438 process concrete account. $7,700 from the A 8160.103 seasonal to the A 8160.119 part-time account. $4,800 from the A 8160.103 seasonal to the A 8160.129 double overtime account. $332.60 from the A 8160.107 A Rider Hazmat to the 8160.104 M Rider Hazmat account. $11,214.20 from the A 1490.410 grounds maintenance to A 7320.201 Youth Center AC account. $3,836.60 from the A 1490.410 grounds maintenance to the A 7320.408 Youth Center repairs and maintenance. $19,328.65 from the A 1490.417 town landings to the A 1490.413 jetties and bulkheads account. $2,671.35 from the A 490.417 town landings to the A 1490.414 town hall buildings account. $2,500 from the 1490.415 trees to the A 1490.425 non-highway tree maintenance account. $187.45 from the A 5010.200 equipment to the A 5010.400 office and miscellaneous account. And $18.62 from the DA 5130.246 equipment to the DA 5130.447 oils and grease account. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that 2021 general claims numbered 1829 through 1939 in the amount of $67,624.62. 2021 highway claims number 224 through 236 in the amount of $19,383.88. 2021 West Neck water claims numbered 43 and 44 in the amount of $65, and Community Preservation Fund claim number 23 in the amount of $2,640.90 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we'll recess the meeting for a public hearing on the Pinto mooring application. Dot?
The application of Nina Pinto, 2 Seaville Road, to install a mooring in Smith Cove at a location designated at latitude 41.0563 degrees north and longitude 72.31666 degrees west.
WMAC will be meeting on Monday night. Anybody interested? It'll be at 6 p.m. To discuss this morning application.
Okay, so there's nothing to discuss then.
No.
Okay, we'll recess that hearing. And we'll we'll open the hearing on the Kohler's wetland application. Dot?
The application of Latimer and Jessica Coles, 8 Westmoreland Drive, for a wetlands permit to replace existing 846 square foot wood deck and steps with 1,238 square feet of raised wood deck and steps. Located partially within the regulated area, 252 square feet of stepping stones adjacent to reconstructed deck within 25-foot adjacent regulated area. Remove 84 square feet of playground equipment from 25-foot adjacent regulated area. Remove 77 square feet of pergola from 75-foot vegetative buffer and install 99 square feet of paver fire pit patio with grass joints within 75-foot vegetative buffer.
Jim, before
Yeah,
the presentation, did you want to?
sure. Just that the CAC did not meet in November to discuss this. So it's on the agenda for December 13th, 7:30. It's a Monday night. I think we'll be here.
And what about planning board?
I've got that. They visited the site on November 18th and made the following observations. There is minimal change in slope of the existing turf yard from the house to the top of the bank, from the top of the bank to where it meets bottom of the bank. And the tidal wetlands boundary there is approximately a 10-foot elevation change in 20 feet of width leading down to West Neck Bay. The slope contains a planting buffer with mature trees. There is no bulkhead or rock revetment on the property. The trees along the top of the bank are slowly subsiding into the slope of the naturally planted buffer. The northeastern corner of the property contains contours channeling surface water runoff into the existing natural wetlands buffer adjacent to West Neck Bay. The property is improved with a set of wooden steps leading down to a dock. There are no proposed improvement to the steps or dock at this time. There were no buried oil tanks were observed, and there will be a significant amount of tennis court fencing removed along the front yard, allowing more open space for wildlife. The removal of the existing well from the 75 to 100-foot zone and the installation of an IA system are significant improvements to the site, along with the improved stormwater drainage plan. In conclusion, the planning board recommends approval of this application with the following recommendations. Though the existing driveway may be legally maintained as it predates the wetlands code, we propose that the asphalt driveway be brought into conformance with code section 133-12F6A by either replacing it with a permeable driveway or installing stormwater collection and recharge, considering its location in the near shore overlay. We recommend the existing planting buffer be enhanced with additional plantings to stabilize the slope, and that the northeast corner of the property be developed as a naturally planted buffer area of 150 square feet or greater as required to stabilize and filter existing runoff. Improvements and expansion of the existing planting buffer should be designed by a registered landscape architect or landscape designer and should include plant material selected from Shelter Island's approved listing of plant materials. Can you just turn your mic towards you? Thanks.
So Rob Herman, Event Consultants, how are you?
Good, thank you, Rob.
Good to see everybody here on behalf of the Colases. As the planning board report noted, there was a change in the scope of the application that Dottie had read. Specifically, the original application proposed demolition of an existing pergola within 75-foot vegetative buffer, installation of a fire pit patio. So those activities within the 75-foot buffer have been eliminated. So the pergola, which we've established is pre-existing, it'll just stay there, and there's no patio proposed at this time. As I promised Dottie, I brought hard copies of the revised site plans in to submit to everyone. I had already submitted a digital copy, which I think she passed around, but I will hand out a plan just to everyone so you have it now. And Dottie, I gave just 2 extra copies there in an envelope for Lori.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Just this is one of those little bit of tricky applications to look at for the board, because there's a larger scope of renovations that are proposed in connection with the existing house, but the house is located in terms of the habitable area. The house is located in wetlands regulated area. Work associated with the house that is within the purview of this application is the demolition of an existing 846 square foot deck with steps, 107 square feet of which are currently located within the adjacent regulated area, and the reconstruction of a 971 square foot deck with 252 square feet being within the 100-foot regulated area. So there is a net increase of deck within the 100-foot regulated area of 145 square feet. The seaward extension of the reconstructed house will protrude no farther seaward toward West Neck Bay than does the existing deck and steps, measured 10 feet off the portion of the house that extends closest to the water now. So based on a slight bend in the wetland boundary on the west side of the property, that's to the west. I'm not sure I got my bearings correct. Yeah, on the west side of the property, I think there's about a 1 foot change in the wetland setback. There's also a proposed installation of 115 square feet of stepping stones. Again, you can see on the site plan that this is a stepping stone pathway that leads generally from the front of the house, wraps around the west side of the house, and then runs along the proposed reconstructed deck. So there's 115 square feet of stepping stones that are actually located within the 100-foot regulated area. In order to mitigate for the proposed work that will be occurring within the regulated area, the applicants are proposing still to remove a playground equipment that's in the adjacent regulated area. I'm not certain how the town actually regulates that, or really regulated as a structure or not, but it's going to be removed. So that 84 square foot reduction actually limits the net increase in coverage within the regulated area to 176 square feet. And again, as the planning board report notes, 115 square feet of that is just the stepping stone pathway. The pathway is designed to be semi-permeable, as it will consist of stone pavers connected with brass joints. So this is not a continuous masonry. In connection with the proposed renovation work that's located outside the regulated area, there is a new stormwater drainage system proposed, whose design does include capture of potential runoff from the reconstructed deck as it is attached to the water side of the house. And of course, a project limited fence will be installed during construction to contain site disturbance and runoff during the construction activities. In response to the planning board's two recommendations, with respect to the driveway, again, the driveway would be located wholly outside the regulated area, not within the scope of this application. But they're going to have to provide drainage for the driveway regardless in connection with the building permit application and stormwater code. So we don't have any objection to accepting their recommendation in that regard. And I think we would also accept the recommendation concerning the increase in buffer area. Right now, the lawn goes pretty much right to the top of the bank, which is a well-vegetated slope that leads down to the shoreline of West Neck Bay. But there is a narrow area of trees that is currently existing just landward of the top of the bank. So we would suggest at least a 5-foot wide area of active plantings adjacent to the top of the bank, which would create additional close to 800 square feet of native plantings in place of existing lawn. And that area that would run parallel to the top of the bank could then tie into this additional minimum 150 square foot area that the planning board is recommending be established in the northeast corner of the property. I think I understand why they're asking for that, because the property grades tend to pitch toward that corner, and you can see it. You have it on the screen at the top of the survey there. You can see how the embankment kind of bends toward the water. And in that area, the grades are kind of pitching that way. So I think they're imagining a little bit more of a robust planted buffer in that corner. Marshall Paisel, let's try that again. Marshall Paisel Landscape Architecture is a registered landscape architect who actually prepared this site plan for the board. So we can have them update the plan accordingly to add that additional buffer area. Board wishes us to do so consistent with the planning board. Otherwise, it is, with respect to the wetland application, a pretty straightforward application. It's fairly minimal in scope, particularly what the board is used to seeing. Certainly happy to answer any questions. MPLA, I believe, is in attendance via Zoom, as is Merrill Framer Architect, who is the design architect for the house and deck. So if you have any questions for me or them, certainly happy to answer them.
Both pool and tennis court do remain. Sport, a multi-purpose kind of sports.
So the
Sports,
tennis court will-
basketball.
it'll be substantially reduced in size, Jim.
Okay,
And this is outside the scope of this application, but just,
yeah,
it's all somewhat connected. We'll see this area of the court
Yeah.
up here is the existing court, and that gets reduced down to
Wow.
this four-foot.
Okay.
So there's a substantial decrease in coverage associated with the reduction in conversion of the court. The pool, to answer the other half of your question, yes, the pool would remain.
Now, I visited there about 2 weeks ago and was just amazed at two things. Number one, the elevation that up from West Neck Bay, which was pretty significant. And the vegetation that lies between the property and the bay. And number two is how close the house was to the property line on the north side of the house. You know, it is what it was, you know, I mean, how they got that approved, you know, I don't know whether it's 8 feet, 10 feet, something like that between the edge of the house and the property line, but.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the house is pre-existing. I know Lord Beard Raymond did review, obviously the site plan and the building permit application prior to issuing the letter of denial, sending us here. And to my knowledge, there's nothing about the application that requires ZBA approval. I think Lori, I mean, I would obviously would have to defer to Lori, but I think she would have included that in the letter of denial if that was the case.
And it's pretty well vegetated up there on that side of the house, so that, you know, the neighbors are somewhat protected from the house being that close to the property line. So that's a decent thing.
What would the size of the deck be if you kept it within the, outside the 25-foot area we're talking about? What would be
So-
the reduction from the proposal?
So we actually, I don't know if I can give you an exact number. Again, Merrill Kramer is in attendance. She might have that number, but that was something we wrestled with for a while at the beginning of the application. If for no other reason, because we were contemplating the idea if it was less deck proposed, might we have avoided the need for wetland permit altogether. What we figured out through conversations, not just with the client and with Merrill, but with Lori, is that the demolition of the deck itself requires the town board's approval pursuant to wetlands permit. And of course, even reconstructing, if the existing footprint were to be reconstructed, you still have only 145 square feet less than what's proposed, still going back into the regulated area. And if you look at the deck, it's a bit odd shaped. And you know, the applicants have a big family, they have 3 kids, they want to establish a place outside, you know, above and off the lawn on the deck. So it doesn't require too much enlargement. I mean, it's pretty modest enlargement in terms of what's being requested, but it does allow a much cleaner appearance architecturally. It kind of, you know, squares off, as they say, the deck. And really just extends it farther across the other side of the house. So it provides a nice improvement to the overall architectural feature, but also really just the livability and usability of the deck. So it was, each time we tried to hack parts of it away, you couldn't really do that in a way that made sense. So we went with this very, you know, proposal for this very modest enlargement. And it really just ends up happening because of the way the wetland boundary bends, you know, the way it angles toward the house. So as you extend it, you know, toward the west, there's a slightly, you know, you get a little bit of a bigger footprint in that area.
Almost looks like you could pick up the same amount of square feet just by coming west. You know, and it's not, wouldn't be unduly narrow if it stayed outside the regulated area. It seems, but I can't really tell because.
Well, the deck now, the deck that's proposed off the seaward side of the house is just 15 feet. So there's the 18-foot dimension that you see includes the steps.
Right.
So the actual usable deck portion is 15 feet wide, which is basically what the existing deck is now.
Right.
But again, you just have the fact that it's not a continuous shape. So as we worked through it, we tried to be careful to design it so that we're not actually protrude. The deck is not in fact moving closer to the bay. It's going to have the same seaward extension off the house as the existing deck. And if you look at the top of the page, right under the label that says proposed 21 square foot wood landing and step, which is just outside the regulated area, you see that 10-foot dimension there.
Yeah.
So that 10-foot dimension is drawn out to the seaward edge of the existing deck steps, and that's the same seaward encroachment as the proposed deck.
Mhm.
But again, in terms of being here for that permit, and being here for that slight enlargement that we're asking, that brings with it the mitigation, particularly if it's the board's pleasure for us to add that additional planted buffer adjacent to the top of the bank.
Mhm.
Because I think that the net result from the board's perspective is that you would rather see this modest change in the deck and have this more significant, real vegetation occurring with what's supposed to be the vegetative buffer to begin with, but they have a pre-existing lawn.
Mhm.
So when we approach these, sometimes we try to figure out the idea that if it were designed in a way that didn't need your approval, then you wouldn't get the mitigation that comes along with it. So that's usually my approach to these things is there some real, material improvement that can be made in the property, to balance what the applicant is proposing. And obviously we had, the storm drainage, and we designed the pathway to be, grass joints and all that. But I think the addition of additional vegetative buffer adjacent to the top of the bank would be, real incentive for the board to allow, the increase in the size of the deck. We're really at the outer limits of the regulated area.
You're talking about 5 feet.
Yeah, I think, exactly. I was gonna say, I think the wetland setback's 94 point something feet. So, and we did, and just, frankly, we spent a lot of time having the same discussion at the beginning of the design stage to see, what made sense. So it wasn't
I
just,
can only tell you, Rob, that the trend is, especially from the CAC, and one of the chairmen is in the back, Howard's in the back, is about the 75 and the 100-foot setbacks, that they're looking for the town board to be more restrictive and more supportive of their recommendations about keeping things out of there when possible.
yeah,
So you can anticipate that in a week and a half, on December 13th, when they meet, that I'm sure the committee will say something about that. Again, the trade-offs are a tactic. I don't want to say a tactic, but again, the trade-offs are real. They're important
oh, yeah.
and they're significant. But I think we are trending away from that kind of thing and become, again, more rigid, more in line with what, the DEC is looking for us to do. And so just anticipate that there might be.
Oh, yeah, and Jim, we completely get that. In fact, that was part of some of the thinking that went into removing the proposed fire pit patio. Of course, ironically, then the planning board said, well, maybe we would have liked that instead. But we're really trying to limit this, and, doing this here and in many other towns. What you always have to keep in mind is if it reaches the point that you don't have any work occurring within the regulated area, then there would be no wetland permits. And then there would be no opportunity. In other words, if there was just a strict
right.
prohibition, no construction within 100 feet, no variances, et cetera, there really then is no need for this process, and there is no opportunity for the trade-offs. And so that's what we try to do is try to always have the regulators keep those trade-offs in mind, because I know what you mean, the characterization of the term tactic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are incentives.
Yeah, they are. I agree.
Installing IA systems, installing improved drainage systems, increasing, or I should say, replacing pre-existing, maintained lawns with native vegetation. These are incentives that not just Shelter Island, but all the other towns we work in use to try to create some real property improvements closest to the water, where the structural changes really are no different. And the reality is whether there's 145 square feet more or less of this deck is not going to have any material impact on the quality or function of the wetlands. But having improved drainage does, because it reduces stormwater runoff. You know, having potential for additional vegetation between the lawn and the bank does. So those are material trade-offs. Those aren't just superficial, you know, window dressings designed to get you to say, okay.
Mhm. So the bottom line is the CAC is going to have to decide, you know, amount of buffers.
Yeah.
The offset.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to wait on
And,
that.
and we certainly, yeah, as I said, we have a landscape architect on board.
Mhm.
And worked with them many times in terms of this buffer, so if there is, if the CAC has material input,
Right.
warrants the increase in deck size, and they have specific recommendations or guidance, we'll certainly, you know, see what that
Sure.
is and
Mhm.
hopefully try to
Okay.
design it work.
Any questions from the audience?
Just a point of clarification that the tennis court will no longer exist then. Obviously, you're reducing it down to this small little area. It's
Correct.
just gonna be a play area. So that where the tennis court is, that's gonna all be ripped up and lawn?
In effect, the tennis court is being removed.
Yeah.
In terms of the end result and replaced with this sport court.
Okay,
Yeah, so I don't know what the proposed landscape design is for that area in place of the tennis court, but again, because that part is so far outside the regulated area,
Sure.
it's not something we.
I'm just thinking about water recharge and because it's a large area.
Yeah.
The existing tennis court that's there now, isn't it kind of a, is it a semi-permeable or is it a hard surface?
Jim, that I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I-
I thought it was asphalt also. Yeah, I think it was a hard court. Of course, it was painted. It was painted blue or something, right? Isn't it? Yeah. Like it wasn't painted that long ago. It was probably painted about 2 or 3 years ago.
And I think MPLA is on via Zoom, so if you want an answer to that now, I'll give it to you.
No, that's all right. That's not important.
Howard?
Come up to the mic. Get you in the mic.
You need to come, Howard, you'd really, because people at home want to
Yes,
hear.
I'm Howard Johansson with the CAC. The only question I have is that the package we got from the town did not include the IA plan. And we'd like to see that to assure ourselves that it doesn't go into the wetlands.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, I'm glad he brought that point up because I had meant to make a note of that for you and I forgot.
Okay.
So because the septic system is outside the regulated area, it was not part of this application. And
Okay.
so we didn't submit a copy of the health department permit, but then I was contacted by Dottie and Lori and we subsequently submitted it digitally, but I don't think it made it to the planning board or the CAC. But Dottie
As long as
should
we
have
it,
that.
Yeah. Okay.
So if for any reason that's not the case, let me know and I can resend it, but you should have it.
Okay.
That's a big,
It-
that's a
it
big
was-
selling point.
Yeah, no, and again, you know, that speaks to part of what I was just talking to Jim about, but again,
Right.
because that's associated with work outside the
Right.
regulated area, we didn't get into that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing us.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not going to close it. We'll recess that hearing because we haven't heard from the CAC. And we'll open the hearing on the Royzan dock redecking application. Dot?
The application of Elaine and Ellen Roizen, 153 North Ram Island Drive, to remove and dispose of existing lower platform, install an 8,000-pound boat lift in location of lower platform, elevate existing dock 2 feet, redeck with untreated lumber, and provide for water and electric.
I think it's on the meeting. Oh, no, it was actually on the. It was on the November 1st. I think it was approved, right, Don? I don't know, to the best of my
I
knowledge.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was approved. Yeah.
Okay, so WMAC approved it. Any comments on this one? Questions? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the Pascarelli mooring application. Dot?
The application of Greg Pasquarelli, 30 Little Ram Island Drive, to install a mooring in Cockles Harbor in front of applicant's property at a location designated as latitude 41.080117 degrees north and longitude 72.303073 degrees west.
Yeah, I think that's on for Monday, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll recess that one till the WMAC meetings. And we'll open the hearing on the McGill mooring application. Dot,
The application of Charles McGill, 89 North Ferry Road, to install a mooring in West Neck Bay off the Capitol Hill Landing at a location designated as latitude 41.064603 degrees north and longitude 72.364641 degrees west.
Yeah, McGill is on the
Monday.
agenda for Monday night. Yeah.
okay, we're going to recess that meeting. And open the hearing on the Groff and Ryan wetlands application.
The application of Nathan Graff and Marissa Ryan, 12 Petticoat Lane, for a wetlands permit to construct a second floor over existing first floor within wetlands regulated area, no outward expansion of building within regulated area.
Okay, planning board,
Planning board I got. They visited the site on November 17th and made the following observations. The property sits in a low-lying area with the grade around the foundation at an approximate elevation of 6 feet. The house's rear view focuses on the freshwater wetlands. The new IA system components are visible in the front yard. The house appears to be heated by oil, with the tank being located in the basement, not in the ground. The accessory structure is heated with propane served from a buried tank. The main house's foundation was constructed from concrete blocks and appears to be in good condition. The recommendations were, we recognize the Petticoat Lane area is environmentally sensitive in regard to water quality and quantity. We applaud the homeowner's installation of the IA sanitary system with a shallow leaching field. The applicant is also proposing roof stormwater collection and recharge into 2 new dry wells. Wire back silt fencing is shown, but it should potentially extend entirely behind the house over to the garage. Excuse me. The plans say the existing first floor will be renovated on top of the existing block foundation. There have been numerous applications in which the homeowner has proposed to maintain the existing foundation, but later determined that the foundation is not adequate and needs replacing. If that determination is made, the new foundation should be relocated further from the wetlands, and the bottom of the cellar slab should meet New York State Code groundwater separation requirements. With these considerations, we recommend approval of this application.
And the CAC is scheduled to meet on December 13th
okay.
on the application. Just as a reminder, have we assigned a clerk to the CAC? Because remember that was a problem with them not
Jane
being.
is your clerk.
Yes,
Okay, so she'll be there for the December 13th?
I would reach out to her to make sure she.
Okay,
Mm.
all right.
okay.
Howard, have you talked to Jane at all about, oh, there you are, right there.
Oh.
Okay. You'll talk. All right,
Okay.
don't make
Is
any
anybody
plans.
here representing Graff and
Yeah,
Ryan?
Matt Sherman with Sherman Engineering and Consulting.
Matt,
Hey, thank you. I'm here on behalf of Nathan and Marissa. This application is really fairly straightforward. It's an existing 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom residence. Everything's on 1 floor, just a typical small ranch style house. We're looking to put a 2nd floor directly over top of the 1st floor. The two of the smaller 1st floor bedrooms are going to turn into a master bath and a set of stairs to go up to the 2nd floor. And then on the 2nd floor, you're going to have 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a home office. A few years ago, the property owners had put an IA system in with a pressurized shallow drain field, so the perfect kind of system for this kind of property. They did that in conjunction with another project where they were putting in an accessory building, a garage with accessory sleeping. That project has been completed. It's on the right-hand side of the property, and you've got that accessory building, you've got the main house, and then you've got the wetlands to the left. So it's a really,
Matt, when was that done?
that was done over the past 2 years or so. They just basically completed it this past spring. So it's all very new.
Did
As
they get
far as this,
funding for that?
I'm sorry, go ahead. What was that one more time?
Did they get funding? Did they get funding for that?
No, I don't believe they did.
Not from the town? Okay.
No, because it was, the septic was put in to facilitate this new building. So it would have
Okay.
been, it would have been seen as an expansion of use.
Yep.
So they wouldn't have been eligible for town funding on that.
The county and the
Um,
state. Yes, thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks.
The
Go ahead.
the stormwater collection, we're looking to collect for a typical 2-inch rainfall from the roof area. Stormwater dry wells installed as far from the wetlands as reasonably possible. We've got the supply well on site, that new septic, all that was approved through the health department. The DEC had initially given us a permit to do a first floor addition, about a 20 by 20 first floor addition. That would have been a significant 400 square foot increase within the vegetated buffer. We decided not to go that route and to go back to the DEC and ask for an approval to do the second floor so that there is no addition to the site coverage or impact on the neighboring wetlands adjacent to the house.
So Matt, is the IA system sized to handle this?
Yes, it was sized for the 3-bedroom house and the 2-bedroom accessory, so a total of 5 bedrooms. We're not adding any bedrooms to the property with this project, so it's still at 5 bedrooms.
And did you hear the recommendation from the planning board regarding the if they have to dewater?
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem. The foundation is in really good shape. It's a block foundation, yes, but it's a relatively shallow. It's got about 6.5 feet of headroom in the basement. The blocks are all solid. First floor framing is solid. I don't know if there is a double top plate on the first floor, but if there, at the most, we would have to adjust the existing first floor framing with a second top plate in order to put the second floor deck on top of it. But it's all in very good condition. So if by some miraculous circumstance we do have to adjust, take the whole building out and start from scratch, then certainly we will do just that, start from scratch, redesign and get things. We'd have to come back to the board obviously to do it, but get a permit to put in a building that's further from the wetlands than the existing building currently is.
Mhm.
Same thing with the silt fence. I brought it around to the back side of the building just because that was a logical stopping place. But it's, adding another 100 feet of silt fence to bring it around to encompass the back side of the building is a non-issue from our perspective. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. Question?
Wait for the CSC minute.
Any questions? Comments? Howard?
Can I ask a question on this issue?
Sure.
I was just
Jim, just
wondering,
identify yourself, please. Just
Bill
identify yourself.
Bill Garrity. I just had a question on the ancillary structure on that property. It's more than just bedrooms, right? There's a kitchen and it's rented out as a separate home?
No, there's no kitchen in it. There is, on the first floor, there's a full bathroom and a living area. On the second floor, there's 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom. I don't believe it's rented out. I don't think they're allowed to rent it out.
Yeah, okay. I live around the corner. It's occupied by a separate family as far as I know. Okay. Does anyone inspect that building to see if there is a kitchen facility in it before they go ahead with improvements to the other building?
I think we'll have to do that before they issue a building permit.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Howard Johansson. I only have one question. I think is the existing AC system is in the wetlands and within 100 foot. And if you go upstairs, we're going to need probably larger air conditioning for the second floor. And I recommend that Matt, that you put that air conditioning out at the 100 foot.
Thank you.
If I heard, it was kind of hard to hear, Howard, but if I heard him correctly, it's about if we're adding a second AC unit, if we could put it outside the regulated area?
Mhm.
Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yep.
That's correct, Matt, but not only
Yep,
are we
okay.
adding it up, to remove the
Existing.
existing one, move it over outside the regulated.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, again, because the CAC hasn't met, we're going to recess that hearing rather than close it. And we will open the hearing on a local law regarding revised septic requirements. Dot, you want to read the?
Okay. A proposed local law entitled Revised Septic Requirements to wit. Do you want this whole thing read, Jerry? Or what? I can if you want.
Yeah, let's read it.
Okay. Be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, purpose. The town of Shelter Island wishes to preserve the health and safety of its citizens and guests and to take those steps that are necessary to ensure that the island's water supply is protected for this and future generations. Section 2, amendment. Chapter 43 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island is amended in that Section 43-10.4 IAOWTS required shall be expanded as follows. 43-10.4 IAOWTS required is amended in that the following shall be added under subsection A. 5, any expansion or renovation of a single-family residence, a multiple family residence, or any other building capable of being used as a residence that A, has an existing non-conforming septic system as determined by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. B, increases the SFLA as defined in the town code by 25%. C, increases the number of bedrooms as defined by the Suffolk County Department of Health that exceeds the allowable number authorized by a permit previously issued by the Suffolk County Department of Health. Section 3, severability. If any provision of this chapter or its application to any person or circumstances is held invalid, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such finding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this chapter. Section 4, secret. This board hereby establishes itself as lead agency pursuant to secret and finds that this action will not result in a significant adverse impact on the environment, as the principal purpose herein is to ensure clean water. And Section 5, effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
Okay, just real quick, IAOWTS stands for Innovative and Alternative On-Site Wastewater Treatment System, and the SFLA is Square Foot Living Area. Jim, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, if Al Dixon was here, obviously he was the person, he's not feeling well. But he's somebody that when we went through the original 5 recommendations from the town board, 3 of the 4 of us agreed on items numbers 1, 2, 4, and 5, but we couldn't agree on item number 3, which basically was changed. So we had a meeting between the town engineer, Albert, and I. We redrafted that number 3. And what the thrust of it was trying to get rid of some of the loopholes and to encourage a more timely replacement of these old systems. Interesting enough, I just had a catastrophe, minor catastrophe Monday night when the septic and the, started to come back into the basement. It's happened now 3 times, but I needed that like a hole in the head on Monday night. And I called up to have the plumber come over, and Jim Williams came over and took a look at it, and the septic tank wasn't filled, but it was pretty much filled. And so therefore we called and we had it pumped out for the second time in the last 3.5 years. But the house, you're looking at a house that was built 15 years ago or 16 years ago. A lot of the septics that we were looking at in terms of trying to get replacements and upgrades for were septics that were 30, 40, and 50 years, that were cesspools, basically. They weren't any kind of, a modern, updated kind of, even conventional system. So we looked at this and came up with those recommendations for those three things. And when we added that, we were talking about adding an existing non-conforming septic as determined by the Suffolk County Health Department. The increase in the SFLA by over 25%, which is significant. So if you went from a house from 3,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet, that would impact that. And the last one was the increase in the number of bedrooms as defined by the Suffolk County Health Department that exceeds the allowable number on the permit. That's why the supervisor just asked the question that he did to the architect, saying, is there any increase in bedrooms? And he said, no, we're keeping the same 5 bedrooms because whatever that is, that system is authorized to do, if you start adding an additional bedroom above that, that would necessitate the introduction of a new IA system. If your septic was only built to handle 4 bedrooms and you were adding 2 additional bedrooms up to 6, then obviously you would have to have the IA system put in there. In the big picture, I guess, the county, for the most part, a vast majority of Suffolk County is not on a, on some type of they rely pretty much on old cesspools and old septic systems, and they don't have a treatment plant that collects all this stuff. So we're talking about literally hundreds of thousands of systems in the county that have to be replaced. There is a nitrogen issue, obviously, here in the center of town. The town board is working on that nitrogen issue. We are also trying to embrace the fact that we want to keep up with keeping the septics in the, these new IA systems in the ground. I think we went over the 100 new IA systems about 6 months ago. Meg, well, what's the latest number that we're at about right now? Yes, about 130. Okay. And how many more applications would you happen to have? Easily 150. So we're talking about, that 130 that are in the ground. and Larson's have been pretty much the probably installing maybe 80% plus of the number of IA systems in the ground. We are getting more and more companies off island that are coming in to do this. The goal was to get this done by 2050. And originally it was talking about 2070, and then they were talking about 2050. And now our goal as a town is to try to look at the number of, the next decade, looking at from 2020 to 2030, how many can we get a vast majority of these old systems now, with new IA systems? Because obviously, and that's not the only problem we have on the island. I live in Silver Beach, and obviously the big problem down there is salt intrusion. So we have a twofold problem here. We have a problem with nitrogen, primarily in the center of town, and we have a salt intrusion problem on the periphery of the town and the nearshore areas. But we're actually have a plan that's working on trying to attack both of those issues. So this is an attempt, and I think Al was, he's not here to take credit for it, but he really was the person kind of pushing this on behalf of the town board to get this done before he left. So we did tone it down a little bit because his original recommendation was which was much more stringent, and we softened it up a little bit, and we think we have something that's pretty fair and just. So, does anybody have any questions on the IA systems at all? Just a word. We have not received, Amber, anything back from Thiel on the 1099s, right? We've not.
No, it's
No.
actually at the
Federal.
federal
At the
level.
federal level, okay.
It's also written to the Build Back Better bill, so if that passes, there is a line item there that eliminates taxation on any initiative projects.
Okay. Yeah. So did everybody hear that? That would be kind of important on any type of green initiative, whether it was solar wind or anything else like that, you wouldn't be taxed on that. So if you're getting grant monies, let's say the system costs, $23,000 to put in, and you happen to be getting, $15,000-$20,000 of grant monies, they were considering that income, and you were paying taxes on that. If this initiative goes through, was successful, obviously, you can't have it both ways. You can't want to encourage people to do something responsible and at the same time then try to penalize them. And by the way, when people in good faith 2 and 3 years ago that took the initiative to do this were not aware of the fact that this was going to hit them. So that it was designed not to initiate some type of 1099 from the tax people. So anybody else have any questions or comments? Meg, who will be on the board in the next matter of weeks, will be our local authority on IA systems. So
Anybody on Zoom? Want to say anything? I need to look at the second.
I just looked over.
Okay, if there's no further comments, we're going to close that hearing. And we're going to open the hearing on the 9 Cozy Lane disposition. Dot?
All right. Lost my place here. The declaration is on the declaration of 9 Cozy Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map number 722-194 as a dangerous structure pursuant to sections 43 and 45 of the Shelter on Town Code, and a determination as to the disposition of the structure.
Okay, we sent out a certified letter return receipt requested and has not been served. So I think the next step is we're going to have to employ a process server and try to physically serve papers.
yeah,
You were going to have to personally serve the owner. I'd spoken to Chris, but he's in having some medical issues today.
Mhm.
So I'll speak to Reed and 'cause I'm not sure when Chris will be back.
Okay,
yeah. The tricky thing about this, obviously, is the inability to be able to contact the owner. We have sent out for the last 3 years certified letters to the owner of 9 Cozy Lane. The house, if you go by down 9 Cozy Lane, the roof is literally caving in. The back door has been open about 2.5 feet. There are animals going in and out. There is black mold all over the inside of the house. There is more insulation hanging from the ceiling and from the walls. The place is in very, very bad state. It's about to collapse. A good heavy snow might just bring that house down. But obviously, the neighbors have been more than patient. We haven't seen the owner on the property in the last 3 years. Attempts have been made. Chris Tian actually visited that home, inspected from the outside. He didn't want to go inside the house because the house is unsafe to enter. And that's why we put the sign on there about 1.5 years ago, unsafe home, do not go on the property. But there is some in the garage, there's some valuables. So obviously we would like to get a hold of the owner. I will tell you that the taxes have continued to be paid on the house. The assessment for the house has come down because the house is not worth anything. And in fact, the house is detracting from the overall assessment of the property, which is 0.86 acres, almost a full acre. And just want to take my hat off to the people that live around there, because being president of Silver Beach for the last 11 years plus, people have been more than patient, trying to work this thing through. But now the town is, actively involved. We definitely we don't even know if the owner is, still alive and whether somebody else is paying those taxes. So we're on it. We're going to try to bring some type of resolution to it. And, but we would love to be able to contact the owner to be able to remove some of the valuables out of that garage area before we raise the house.
Also, just so everyone's aware, this isn't something where we're condemning the property in total. We're not taking the land.
Right.
All we would be doing was demolishing the house for the sake of, as it's become unsafe.
Yeah. I mean, the land itself for an acre in Silver Beach, it's not right on the water, but it's a very good piece of property. Once the house is leveled and, it'll be worth something, I guarantee you.
So Bob,
Yes,
the cost of that demolition, should the town go through with it and it's a lien against the property?
Correct.
yes.
Yes. So everybody hear that question, that there'd be a lien if the town actually, takes the house down, whatever it costs the town to do that, there would be a lien on that property. And the town, by the way, just for everybody's edification, the last 2 years, we've been cutting occasionally, and not obviously every week or every month, but trying to go over, trees have fallen, we've cut up some limbs. We've tried to fence off the house to make the house so that nobody would get in, the kids or anybody else would get into the house. Because literally the porch, if you would ever step on you'd fall right through. I dare say there's so much damage in the house. If you were to walk into the house, you'd end up in the basement. And we don't want to see something like that happen, somebody injured. So that's why that fence, that kind of ugly orange fence has been up there. But it was a warning to keep people away from the house itself.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, Bill Garrity, I had a couple of questions on it.
Yep.
Is there any particular reason why we're going through a chapter 45 and 43 as opposed to condemnation?
We have no justification for taking the land. It's a safety issue, which is something that falls under 45.
Have we ever prosecuted a chapter 45 before?
I'm not sure, was
I'm not
was
sure.
the
what-
Boylan
I'm
property
not
at
sure how
45?
How that was taken.
Not for the last couple of years. We have, there are a couple of scenarios where we've taken things down. One was chapter 40, I think it was chapter 45 with John Boylan, although that was with the consent of the owner. And there was the taking of
Volunteer park.
volunteer park, but that was a tax issue as well. So it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past.
Yeah, it just seems that town goes in and knocks the house down, that you might have a taking issue claim, but that's why I just asked if we'd ever done it. It's never been done successfully before. I mean, ultimately,
Sorry, they were making sure we actually contact the owner and serve him properly.
so he pays his taxes. Do we, on the check that he pays his taxes with, is there an address on there other than his Shelter Island PO box?
We have an address, we have a phone number, we just, he doesn't respond.
I have all that information, but in terms of the taxes, I asked the same question. By the way, Bill Garrity is a neighbor, happens to live across the street from the house. So people that don't know that, he lives on Cozy Lane. But I went to the assessor's office, the tax collector's office, a year ago, asking that very question, the same question. Who is paying the taxes? Where is it coming from? Where's the return address there? Do we even know if this man is still alive that owns the house? Because I don't think his name was on the check of what we were getting when they were paying the taxes. So I did ask that very question, Bill, over a year ago. And that's why it is a unique situation. We do want to be very cautious on it. I'm not real comfortable until we actually make some type of contact with either the owner or the owner's family before the town takes action, because I'm not looking at having another lawsuit that the town is facing, So we're going to do everything within, that's why I've been saying it for the last month. Let's do everything in our power to make sure that we have made every effort to contact either him or other family before we take any definitive action on the house itself.
So the mail goes, I believe he's got a PO box on Shelter Island. Do we know where it's getting forwarded to from there, or is someone picking up the mail on Shelter Island? Do we know those things?
Oh, we don't. We believe it's being forwarded, but we don't have an address.
Well, we do have an address.
We don't,
That's
well,
what-
we don't have the forward address from.
Yeah,
it.
we do. We forward, we sent it to Maine.
Yeah.
We sent it to the main address.
36,
I'm sorry.
36 Hillside Avenue,
Right.
South Portland, Maine, 04106.
We have an address, because it wasn't something we got from the post office.
Right.
I just want to make that clear, because they could get,
Mhm,
it would be a problem if they gave out that information.
mhm.
Okay.
Because what I'm thinking is, so we knock it down, we get a lien against the house. I guess the town would then assess that and it would be taxed. It would be part of his tax bill that he'd be required to pay, I assume. That's one option under section 45, chapter 45.
Yep.
So if he
Yeah.
didn't pay his taxes, then ultimately the town could take the property that way or put it up for a tax sale, right?
Right.
Potentially, yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which is the more efficient route, whether it's to go through eminent domain or chapter 45, because it seems we might get to the same result without having to go through the expense of knocking down the house.
If we go through eminent domain, we basically would be
Buying it.
required to pay them the approximate value of the land. So I think that would end up being more
But it would
expensive.
be, yeah, but then you could, either way, I don't know what the town ultimately intends to do with the land if they do get the land. But as Jim pointed out, I'm sure the land could be.
We're not looking to buy the land. We're looking to, take care of a dangerous situation.
I know, but what I'm saying is then you're gonna have a lien against the land, and if he doesn't pay it, which he may not, then where are we? Our solution at that point would be, I guess, to take the land.
That's a lengthy process. And in the meantime, the danger has been removed, which is
Right.
really the whole point. So the fact that the other process might take some time is, I don't think, that material.
Right. Mhm.
I think they're both gonna take a lot of time, but
Right.
is there do we know if there's a basement in the house?
I have no idea.
I'm not certain on that, Bill. I can tell you that the land value is 3 times the price of the house, of what the house is assessed at now. I won't give out the exact numbers, but the land is really 75% of what the whole house and property is valued at.
Yeah, I was curious as to why the assessment was reduced. Is that necessary? Did the owner ask that it be reduced? Because it seems we gave up leverage. We should have kept his taxes higher if we could have, and made it more difficult for him to continue to pay for property that is just falling apart.
It was part of a periodic reassessment of the entire area. If we left that out, that would have been a situation where we were singling out a single person.
No.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Bill, sorry.
No, I just didn't understand. It was not a specific reassessment of that property. It just came down as a result of the overall area being reassessed. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
The whole island is annually reassessed.
I see.
Yeah, I'm not certain though, Bill, to be very honest with you, because it was my understanding that because the house had deteriorated to such a state that the assessment had gone down. I may be wrong, though. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, that's correct, Jim.
Because I looked at the tax structure of what it was, and it has been heading downward, not upward.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems, ironic that we're spending money and time on this and what we're taking in for the property is going down, but.
The only thing I
thank
could, Bill, any suggestions that you have, since you are an attorney, that you want to share with Bob DiStefano, I would encourage you to do so. And that goes for any attorney that's out there that handling this case. So if anybody has some good ideas or resolutions that you would like to share, I think Mr. DiStefano would be more than happy to hear from you on this. Because again,
I appreciate the town's in a tough spot with this. It's a difficult situation. I'm just trying to, find out where we're at. But thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna recess that hearing, recessing all the hearings tonight. And we're gonna open the hearing on the local law to revise definitions. Amber, you want to read this?
That's okay with Dorothy.
Saving you, Dot.
Thank you.
Okay. Local law to revise definitions. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to stop when we get to the individual definitions. Be it resolved that the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:50 PM prevailing time on the 3rd of December, 2021 in the. Oh, sure. Yes.
When you, like, you know, and I've been here, I've been doing it
On Zoom?
whatever
Mhm.
they call it. You can't hear yourselves.
Okay.
On that. You know, you hear something is going on, but you can't figure out what it is.
Okay.
So you, number one, you speak too quickly. and
Okay.
Number two, you speak too lowly, not low.
Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So I'll start again and I can see Stella on the screen. So Stella, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Thumbs up. Okay, good. Thank you. Be it resolved that the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 4:50 PM prevailing time on the 3rd day of December 2021 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to a proposed local law entitled Revised Definitions to Wit. Be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, purpose. The town of Shelter Island wishes to clarify and standardize definitions throughout the town code. Section 2, amendment. The town code of the town of Shelter Island shall be amended in that the following changes shall be made. A new chapter 2 definitions shall be created as follows. Chapter 2 definitions. Section 2-1, unless specifically defined below, words or phrases used in this chapter shall be interpreted so as to give them the meaning that they have in common usage and to give this chapter its most reasonable application. Section 2-2. For the purposes of the Shelter Island Town Code, the following rules of construction shall be used. A, words used in the present tense include the future tense. B, the singular number includes the plural, the singular. C, person shall mean an individual, partnership, corporation, association, or other entity. D, the word lot includes the word plot or parcel. E, occupied or used shall be considered as though followed by the words or intended, arranged, or designed to be used or occupied. F, the word building includes the word structure. G, the word shall is always mandatory. H, any dispute among meanings shall be determined by the relevant board. Section 2-3, the following definitions shall be applicable to all chapters of the Shelter Island Town Code unless this chapter is directly referenced and an alternate definition explicitly set forth. In such cases, the alternate definition shall control for the purposes of that chapter only. And then it continues on with various words defined.
Okay, thank you. Before we open it to the public, I just want to go over a couple of things. We received a number of emails with a lot of concerns, and I just want to go over two things. I want to go over, how we actually adopt laws and revisions and the history of this particular work. The town board discusses a topic and decides that a law needs to be created or revised. And number two, an initial draft is created. That draft is discussed at work sessions until the town board is satisfied that it reflects what they want to accomplish. This initial draft will be published for the meetings and used at the work sessions. A final draft is posted on the website. It'll be marked final for hearing. Notice of the hearing and posting of the text of the law or revision shall be no later than 3 days prior to the hearing. The reality is we do this a minimum of 2 weeks before the hearing. Public hearing is held. The hearing may be closed or recessed. As you saw tonight, most of them are recessed. The town board decides if the matter is ready to move to a vote or if further discussion is needed. The options are recess the meeting, which can then be further discussed at work sessions and the reconvened hearing, close the hearing and further discuss among the board at a work session and vote at the next meeting or special meeting, Bless you.
Thank you.
Or close the meeting and vote immediately. We usually don't, it's very rare that you vote immediately. Once the law or revisions pass, it shall be filed with the town clerk, who shall post the law and file it with the Secretary of State. So it's a procedure. It's not, you don't set the hearing, have the hearing and vote on it right away. Sometimes we've been told we take too long to act on things, but we try to get as much input as we can before we do act. As far as this particular thing, we've again, we received a lot of emails and there's a lot of question what we're doing. I want to give you a little bit of history. This topic was first discussed on September 8th, 2021. In reality, it was Bob and I discussed this with the town attorney a month before the election of 2019, 18, before I was elected the first time. I met with the town attorney and went over things that were outstanding in the town that needed to be done. And one of the first things the town attorney told me was, we need to work on the revision of the definitions for the town. And it wasn't something that we got to until now, because quite honestly, because COVID set us back at least a year. So we're doing that. The document was originally drafted on September 10th of this year. An article appeared in the Reporter on September 15th of this year. We've had discussions, and it was on the agenda for 11 work sessions. The full law was on the website from mid-October on. A hearing was set November 12th. And the proposed law was in the newspaper November 18th, 16 days prior to the hearing. So I think we're being very transparent. I think we're trying to do as much as we can to make sure everyone understands what's going on. It seems people think we're trying to sneak things in, which we're obviously not. We're not dealing with the code. What we're dealing with the definitions. So when we get to the code, we don't have to spend a lot of time on definitions. I understand there was concerns that it was sloppily done, and I'll take the blame for that because I didn't proofread everything as well as I should have. We made some documents that are available on the website. We'll share some of them tonight with you. The first one is we put together a document that has category, chapter, code, and definition. What this is we have every definition we addressed with the revised definition and the definitions that were the same identical definitions that we're taking out, where we're taking them out from. And then on a separate document, Bob has what some people had asked for, a red line document, why we took it out, or why we moved it, where we moved it. So those will all be available on the website for anybody that wants it. We just to give you an example, real quick, advertising was in 2 places. We put it in 1 place. Bed and breakfast was in a number of places. Dwelling was in a number of places. Lot was in a number of places. Immediate family was in a number of places. Owner was in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. Parking stickers we're taking out. Permit we're taking out because we have a better definition. Resident 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different code items it was in. So again, we're trying to make it more efficient. Again, this all goes back to, and I think I've said it probably almost at every meeting, that things have changed to the point where, and I reference Alfred Kilb all the time, that Alfred always says, the town works. We know how to make it work and it works. But things have changed to the point where people say, well, that's not what the code says, or you're not following the law. You're not doing it the way it's supposed to be done. So that's what we're trying to do, is make what we do and what the code says the same thing. So we're starting with the definitions and we're going to go forward from there. And we're not going to address the zoning code until we get the comprehensive plan back in place, which we hope to do after the first of the year. So if anybody else wants to speak before we open it to the
Yeah, I
public.
just want to,
No, this is a hearing, Barbara. We're not, this is nowhere near finalized. No, that's what I'm trying to explain. The word on the street, if you will, is that, this is a done deal. This is the beginning. This is the first public hearing to discuss this at work sessions. That's what we do.
audience. Oh,
Okay,
right.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Good, Christina.
Right.
All right, so I had a question about this because we are going to post it. So I just want to make sure, like, I'm understanding how to read it and that might help others. So if we look at building
Can you
inspector
put
that I
it-
have,
okay.
it's on the screen.
Mhm.
So if we look at building inspector, that's a definition that we're making. So that's what the revised.
Okay,
line
so,
is.
the highlighted one is the new definition, the bold one. It says revised. And the other ones it was in those separate sections and those were eliminating.
So, okay, that's,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I wanted to come to.
Pat,
my-
could you go,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah. And then seller, since it's on there and it's highlighted, it's just coming out entirely.
If
Because
it's
it's-
highlighted with that color, it's coming out completely.
That was changed.
And on Bob's document, it tells you why it's coming out.
Consolidated.
The question was, why not have had a red line version to begin with? It's okay if it's not there. If now you're giving a red line version, it's going to be much easier to be able to look at it and understand where the changes came from, and then also why you're making the changes. But for most people here, they're not aware that there was no red line version,
Right. Mhm.
and there was no way to easily follow it.
Mhm.
It's a massive
Right.
amount of work to change.
Right.
It is.
And we realized that, and we did that. We tried to do that to make it
The
easier to
board
understand.
specifically asked for a red line on this one.
Okay.
So ordinarily, they aren't done because both the new sections and the sections that are being removed are both cited in the statute. It's easy enough to look them up on the internet, on the website.
Mike, the microwave.
You have to come up if you want to talk, because there's a lot of people on Zoom
Mhm.
and they're not gonna be able to hear you. Okay. Anybody else want to speak here before we go to, the Zoom?
Is there Bill Mastro here?
He's online.
He's online.
He's online.
Well, Bill Mastro wrote a brilliant letter today. I guess it was sometime recently regarding the subject. He should probably be speaking. But he pointed out the need for a red line copy. And you're saying that you just posted it today.
Well, we just finished it today.
You finished it today, and this is the public hearing for what we're
This is
talking about.
a
So-
public.
A
hearing.
public hearing.
Just
a
one.
public
Yeah,
hearing.
the
So
first
one of the requests that I think a lot of people in the town are asking is that this public hearing be postponed.
It's not gonna be postponed. It's gonna be recessed.
Yeah.
This is the beginning.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then do
recessed,
it again,
yeah.
yeah.
be recessed
Yeah.
to another time.
Yes.
So that they'll have an opportunity,
Yes.
maybe several weeks or whatever it is, to
Absolutely.
review the red line version that's just
Yes.
been posted today.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
yet up on the website.
All right.
We have to get it up.
One of the things that Bill Mastro had suggested that this become a best practice of this board, because I've seen legislation passed like this, where I'm a lawyer and would take me hours to figure out what was posted versus what changes are being made in the code. Here you're talking maybe 70 different changes, and I think you may have misspoke earlier saying that the code is not being changed. You're only changing the definitions and you're going to look at the code later on. Well, when you change the definitions, you could make material.
I would say
changes.
80% of it is consolidating, not changing definitions.
Well,
Moving them into getting them out of all the different categories they're in, putting them in a definition category and consolidating them.
all right, well, when you consolidate something, that could have a material change on the outcome of somebody's home, for example. So this is why the community needs to follow a process where they can understand what's going on. And you don't have to be a lawyer or hire a lawyer to do a red line on these kinds of things. So it's very important that it's done. I'm glad it's finally come up in this context. But whether it's consolidated or changing of definitions or eliminating of definitions, you are making substantial changes potentially that you may not even foresee when it comes up in now interpreting a provision regarding somebody's house or a business or whatever. So I think you got to be really, really careful about code changes. And I'm glad the community has gotten together because emails were flying all over the town over this, and I don't even fully understand it. I went to the website today to look for the law that you're discussing, and I couldn't find it. Now, I do it on my phone, and I did it earlier this afternoon, but I couldn't find where it was. There used to be a section called documents or something, and I couldn't
Yeah.
find that section. What happened?
It's, you know, the website, you know, we are continually trying to make it more user friendly, but I guess maybe this is one instance where it was not. But if you go to, I've just brought up on the screen so everyone can see it. If you go to government, at the very bottom, upcoming hearings and pending laws. And so then we have the list of the different items that are.
Okay. May I
being
suggest that in addition to that section, which I couldn't find, that you add it into the section where it says meetings, click on meetings,
Okay.
and click on, go scroll down
Mhm.
and click on this meeting, and then right, not maybe there, but right under it. If you're going to be discussing things at that meeting, maybe that's where it should go, because that's generally where people are going to be looking to find out what's going to happen at that
Mhm.
meeting.
Yeah. No,
Right.
and yes, we can change that. And also historically, the tab that we used to have for pending legislation was not getting very many hits.
It was
So
a separate one.
yes, but it was, and so we were looking at things. We
I
were,
found it like a few weeks ago, I noticed, but I couldn't find it today.
yeah. But as we started to
These
like
things
look
happen.
at things, we're trying to look at metrics and sort of see what people are looking for when they come to the town website. So that wasn't something that was getting a lot of hits,
Okay.
but obviously now there's something where it would be getting a lot of hits.
All right.
So
Well,
we
somebody
can
ought to
make it
think
more
about the
prominent.
user interface so that it makes
Yes.
it easier for us to
Mhm.
figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Lori?
And then Bill Maestro has.
Hi, I am Lori Raymond I have to put my glasses on, so I'm really good to see you, but I can see what I'm reading. I'm Lori Raymond. I just want to be clear that I'm speaking here today as a resident, not as a town employee, and I do not represent anybody but myself. And I am asking you, the purpose of my speaking today is to ask you to delay the adoption of this proposed revised definition. I think that there is a lot more work to do. It will take time and public input to prevent miscommunication and unforeseen circumstances. In essence of time today, I have done somewhat of analysis of the proposed definitions. I'm not going to go through all of them because that's just too many definitions, but I have prepared a few examples for you. First example is places of lodging. That definition is being pulled out of chapter 36.3, which is beaches and parks. However, the definition being proposed for new chapter 2 includes rentals and guest cottages, which in some cases conflict with chapter 133 because not all sections of the town code under zoning allow rentals of accessory sleeping structures, such as 133.6EA and 133.7EA, unless it meets the criteria of 133.17, or they're not allowed to rent it at all in certain sections of the town.
For short term?
Not for anything. That's correct. You're allowed to rent the main house, but you're not allowed to rent an accessory sleep structure in most sections of the current town code in chapter 133. Another example would be certificate of occupancy and certificate of compliance. Those two things are very different. You've combined them all into one. Your proposed definition says a document issued to the owner of a premises attesting that the premises has been built and maintained according to provisions of the building or zoning codes. C of O is evidence that the building complies substantially with the plans and specifications that have been submitted to and approved by the local authority. However, the definition of substantially is for the most part, does not mean in its entirety. New York State Building Code definition, a document is issued by the authority having jurisdiction that the building complies with the approved construction documents that has been submitted to and approved by the authority having jurisdiction, indicating that is in the condition suitable for occupancy, which means it fully complies with the plans and specifications that have been submitted and approved, not partially. So I asked, not expecting an answer, why would the town want to be liable for construction that only partially complies with plans and specifications? There's also a mechanism, during construction for changes that are made once the building permit is issued. So, that's a different topic entirely. Definition of the CFC in the New York State is a successful completion of a housing inspection. Chapter 133 recognizes the definition and limitations and the differences between the inspector being able to certify the building complies with plans and specifications due to its age, and no plans are on file because most likely the structure was erected before the enactment of the New York State Building Code. Thus, zoning use or a pre-existing condition can only be certified for zoning or its life safety visible features such as smoke and carbon monoxide. So those are two very different things, and what has been written is something entirely. The same thing goes for variance. The word variance has been proposed. It looks like it's being repealed out of chapter 68.4 for flood damage prevention. The proposed definition in the new proposed chapter 2 says, a grant relief from requirements of the Shelter Island Code, which permits construction and the use in a manner that would otherwise be prohibited. However, what's missing is the nuances between a use variance, which is very different from an area variance, as defined in chapter 133, which is the zoning code. The current definition, as written in chapter 68.4, cover both the use and area variances. However, that's not what you've written, and it doesn't have any conflicts with chapter 133. So if you change this as it's currently written, it will indeed conflict with chapter 133.
So there is currently no variance definition in chapter 133.
There is an area variance and a use.
Well, there are two different, there are specifics, and the chapter variances would override this.
But the way,
They're not being
but the
removed.
way you've written it is you've written it as a use only
Right.
in the definitions. That's the difference. Another example, and I have many, so please stop me when you've heard enough.
No, I was gonna suggest, I'm not looking to cut you off at all, because I think some of your points are very well taken. But I'm gonna make a broad statement. I think what Supervisor said is, it's a beginning. A little sloppy work for the first 2 months. The board has to take responsibility for that. I think we, by not being neat and clean for the last 2 months, we've set this in motion. We apologize for that. We're looking to rectify that. These are some major changes. There is a domino effect or potential domino effect when you change a definition, how it impacts other areas of the town code.
Absolutely.
So you have to be obviously very careful, very diligent. So I propose, being a coach, going back to the team effort and wanting to put together the best minds and help our town attorney and the town board making constructive comments where you see fit. And let's keep moving along. And whether it takes us a month or a couple of months to get this done, the idea is to get it done to the best of our abilities. Our abilities meaning not just the town board, but everybody that's here. And again, if it's not 100% accurate when we enact it, and it has to be tweaked, it has to be tweaked. But obviously, you've brought up some great points and some good illustrations. And I think the people like yourself, not as a private citizen, but now as a town employee, and who's very well versed in town code, can work very closely with the town attorney in terms of making these kinds of recommendations.
One thing, I'm sorry, it's really important with regard to this, though, and that I just want to make sure we don't get off track on, is we should remember that in doing depositions, we have to keep it to the very basics of the definitions. We shouldn't be getting into what, into trying to deal with code issues. Like the area variance is the perfect thing. There should be a very basic definition of variance, then there should be area variance, and
Right, well, how it's,
In the chapter.
how it's written in that original
Um,
chapter is written correctly. So either you've left a couple of words out, or you've written something else, but what you've written has a different meaning than what is in there now.
Okay. Yeah, but those are specific to whether there are area variances. Or.
So, I hear what you're saying, Jim, and I have a couple other comments and not in particular to any specific definition. But I am not in favor of creating the new chapter 2, because I think it's going to cause a lot of confusion. Because if a resident or somebody who's not familiar with the code or the different chapters, or even the definitions for that part, is going to be trying to use the code to look up something. And if you create it in a chapter 2, but some of the definitions are still in the other chapters, some of the definitions are now in 2, and they're going to have to look in multiple places, and they're not going to know what they're going to look for. I deal with the public a lot, and I think they're going to be confused. I mean, even for me to go through this and bounce back and forth, I do recognize, and I agree with you 100%, that the problem with our town code is we have multiple definitions and different sections of the code for one word.
Right.
And that's a problem. But you need to go through each chapter and fix that so all the definitions are consistent. But I would recommend you keeping those definitions within the chapters. If you look at any other town, Southampton town, which is enormous because it encompasses a very large area, East Hampton town, which also, I'm not talking about the villages, I'm talking about the
Right.
townships themselves.
Mhm.
And even the town of Southold, which I know this was modeled over after, even if you go to just one section of those codes, which is the zoning code, that zoning code is not only written there, but it has its own definitions for each and every little thing in that. And they've done a very good job. It's simple, Bob. It really is very simple. And with the search and find feature that all of our town codes have now on all the towns, all you got to do is type in a word like building inspector, and it pops up in all the different places. And that's how you check it to make sure that you've updated that definition. If that's the definition you want to update, that it gets updated in all the chapters. Because it doesn't apply. When you take it and move it out of another chapter and change the definition, it often has a different interpretation of that definition. It changes it entirely its meaning.
I don't disagree with that. So.
So
You made
and
some point.
clearly, if anybody even saw the article in the reporter that was listed yesterday, Julie Rain read an article, and the top of the article talks about, the septic regulations. And because that's how this definition was originally listed on the town website. So that's why you're hearing a lot of chatter in the public and everyone's texting everybody and emailing and Facebook and all over the place. It's because the public is confused. They're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So, I mean, those are just my comments. I'm trying to be constructive. I totally agree with what you're trying to do. I just don't agree with how it's being done. And that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just a couple of things. One, in response to Lori's first point about the adjournment, I think everybody's already on the, that this is not going to be voted on today,
No.
that this is going to be recessed. So I think just to make that point. Also just wanted to respond to the discussion about the separate chapter. I'm sure all the definitions that we have actually started out the same, but because they're all spread apart and such, over the time as we change this or change that, they start to vary. This is an attempt to stop that type of a process from happening. Just by putting them under a single point. And so you don't have to change 8 definitions.
Right.
And if you miss one, then you've got a problem. The other thing is it's already confusing to the public because they're looking at 7 different definitions of different things. And each definition is, they'll look at chapter 63 and how come, why doesn't this apply in chapter 75? So it'd be good to have something that's more consistent throughout the code.
Thank you. Anybody else here?
We have, yeah, I was going to say, we have some on, we're going to, do the audience members here, and then we've got Bill
Right.
Maestro and Stella Lagutis with their hands raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's no one else in this room,
Stell?
I know Bill was had his
Oh,
hand
Bill.
up first.
Wait, Stell, I'm sorry. Bill was first.
No worries.
Should I speak?
Yep, go ahead.
All right. First of all, I want to thank you because you obviously heard what we were saying in our various different communications, and you're reacting to them, and that is good. One of the things I want to make clear is we're not trying to act as hair shirts here. As I said in my correspondence, we understand it can be difficult to move matters forward, and that the changes that were being made, they may be well-reasoned, they may be necessary, but unfortunately, it was almost impossible to tell. The fact that you are now doing this kind of overview document is really good, because now we'll be able to get into the nitty-gritty and some of the things that were just raised, where there are inconsistencies or maybe there are unintended consequences that can be viewed. A red line version is also very helpful. In my prior life, I did a lot of government relations. The government relations departments reported to me when I was general counsel. And all of the time on important legislation, and I have to say it was mostly at the federal or state level, you would get red line versions, but there was something else that you would also see, which might be helpful here, which is sort of like a legislative memo, where for the specific changes that you're making, give a reason why they are being made, so that we're not sitting here speculating, trying to figure it out. Personally, I happen to agree with Bob. It's easier to have, I did a lot of transactional work. It's a lot easier to have a definitional section, and so that you keep definitions consistent. But when you're making these changes, like I looked at one I thought was relatively innocuous, which was home occupation. And I was looking at it and I couldn't understand why in the prior code, there was a little bit more to it. It says things like it does not change the character of the and it does, and the foregoing applies to professionals and trades, and it was left out. Could have been good reasoning why it was left out. But if you give us that in some type of legislative memo, when people are reviewing it, then they're going to, okay, that's why, and they'll either agree or they'll disagree, and we'll have better interaction and better dialogue in terms of it. Because I don't think most people, as I said, want to be a hair shirt. They're concerned about certain topics and they want to be sure that they're being addressed. So I thank you for what you did, because you obviously heard what was put in, and hopefully we will move to to best practices.
The rationale for the changes is on the red line.
It is. Okay, that'd be great. A rationale is very helpful, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. Who's next?
Stella?
Stella would be
Stella,
next.
you're next.
Thanks. I want to echo what Bill said and thank you for putting the document together. I mean, first of all, what you're doing in terms of trying to standardize definitions is yeoman's work. It's not easy, especially when you didn't own the document to begin with. So this document is going to go a long way. My question is fairly simple. How do you want, Bob, to get recommendations for further edits or questions? Because I went through it as Lori did, although she probably did a much more thorough job. I'm sure others have, and you will be inundated. So what's the best way for us to get you feedback?
Email rdstefano@shelterislandtown.us.
Right. Okay. And I mean, would you be willing to share a Word version of a document so we could redline or question, or that's just not where you want to go?
That's not a problem. I'll just mark it a draft.
Okay, so if you can share that,
Yeah.
I-
Just,
you know-
email me I don't necessarily want to put it online, but if someone email me, be all happy. I'm happy
Okay.
to send.
will do. So thank you again for the document, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of feedback.
Thanks, Phil. Stephen? You're on mute, Steve. You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you go.
There you go.
You hear me? Good evening,
Yep.
everybody. Given the hour, I'll be very brief. I want to say, as Bill said, I'm happy things have changed since Tuesday at the work session when it appeared that the board was prepared to enact all or a majority of these definitions. I think the notion that this is a process and we're just beginning or not far from the beginning of the process is very helpful. Sounds as though the document that's just been made available will also be helpful, hopefully just not just to the board, but to the public as well. I do, though, feel constrained to note that the notion which we heard again today, that quote, we're not changing the code, we're changing definitions, is truly misplaced. And I just like to read a paragraph of a very comprehensive letter that was sent to the board this morning by Albert D'Agostino, a lawyer whose Shelter Island roots go back literally 75 years and whose legal practice over more than half a century has involved land use to a very heavy extent. Albert writes, and hopefully those of you on the town board, and including its newest member, who haven't had a chance to carefully review what he wrote, will be able to do so shortly. But he writes the following: any land use municipal attorney is acutely aware that it is the definitions which create the prison through which the code provisions must be interpreted. Those definitions create the boundaries of legal interpretation. The definitional provisions of any code are the first thing that any land use municipal attorney will review in reviewing the succeeding substantive provisions of a code. Indeed, the definitions frame the succeeding provisions, and in many, indeed most cases, carry more substantive impact than the succeeding provisions. Attempting to formulate definitions is not an easy task, and the ramifications, whether intended or unintended, can be manifold and far-reaching. Thank you for your consideration. We look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you. Anybody else on it? Anybody else on Zoom? Pam?
Yeah, hi, everyone. Yeah, it's a very important topic this evening. I'd like to just start at the very beginning of the document, the part that Councilwoman Brock Williams had read. And basically, I'd like to start with section 2.2. I mean, I was always taught to start from the very beginning. So when we go into the first mention that words used in present tense include future tense, well, that's really not how the English language works. So I'm not really sure why that's put there. And again, the same thing with the singular is plural and plural singular. It probably causes a fine line on definitions and should be kept in very good check. And then the next topic is a person, meaning an individual, partnership, corporation, association, or other entity. And I'm not certain what we're meaning by that. I have gone through the code. I looked up the 5 or so different definitions that are going to be repealed and put them together. And I'm curious about why are we calling a person a different entity? And then once you do that, it opens up a whole nother doorway for other things to happen. So can I get an answer from the town attorney about that? why that's separate into that. I mean, just to hit that first thing, 2.2C, I'm just want to start from the beginning.
I'm not sure what the concern is. Why are we, it's a legally, the idea of what a person is pretty much been defined by the courts. And this is basically a statement of that.
Okay. But now you're saying that it's an individual corporation, limited liability company, partnership, limited partnership, business trust, estate, trust, association, or any other legal or commercial entity of any kind or description. Boy, that's gray. I don't understand that definition at all. There's so much gray area in there. I'm looking for an explanation, because in the current code, it basically says an individual, association, partnership, or corporation, an individual, firm, partnership, corporation, or other entity, an individual, firm, partnership, trust, corporation, company, association, or organization, an individual, association, partnership, corporation, or other legal entity. And then, and then there's one more here. Any person, firm, partnership, association, corporation, company, organization, or legal entity of any kind, including municipal corporations, governmental agencies, or subdivisions thereof.
Anything is a person.
Anything seems to be a person. And this is, and I think that this is a crucial definition that needs to be satisfied. And if I go to the New York State Building Code, just for the one definition, folks, I'm not going to take up more time than this. The New York State Building Code says a person, an individual, heirs, executors, administrators, or assigns, and a firm, partnership, or corporation, its or their successors, or assigns, or the agent of any of the aforesaid. So what is a person?
I think you answered your
I
own
mean, I
question.
think it's crucial because person goes into many other definitions in the code, including resident, including owner. And this is just the first, this is just 2.2C of this
Yeah.
new law. Yeah,
Correct.
so I
think
I don't
when you,
understand why we're changing it to all these other entities. I'm trying to get an answer from the town attorney.
I think when you look at the documents that we're posting with the red lines, you'll see what the definition is, all the ones we took out and where we took them out of. And on the bottom, the reasoning is combined and standardized. So I think it's kind of self-explanatory
Even
why
if
we're
you go
doing
through
it.
that list of all the different things that you read throughout the multiple definitions, that pretty much comes down to what we ended up putting in as the new one.
No, but what you added to the new one were things like limited liability corporation, estates, associations, and this entity of any kind or description. That's where the gray area comes in. So that's not in the current code. The current code does not say that.
Combination
So
of individuals or any other form of unincorporated enterprise owned or conducted by two or more persons. I mean, that's kind of vague. That's why we took it out.
It is there, all of those.
I don't even know where that one's coming from. I have the 6 in front of me right now as they stand, and the new one is completely different. And we're only on the very first definition of this very large piece of
Well,
legislation.
I would follow up on Councilman Colligan's suggestion is if you could, email us your concerns and, we will address them.
Okay, I'm gonna just go over one other concern that I have that was in the 2.3 part of the legislation, where it says that we can have alternate definitions by different parties now. I'm sorry. Let me just find it. Just crazy. I'm sorry, Ms. Brock Williams, can you read it? The 2.3 part of the new draft. I'm sorry. I know you have it.
The following definitions shall be applicable to all chapters of the Shelter Island Town Code unless this chapter is directly referenced and an alternate definition explicitly set forth. In such cases, the alternate definition shall control for the purposes of that chapter only.
Right, so my argument with this is that the whole point of this legislation is that we won't have alternate definitions. So why is that part of this legislation?
It's not an alternate definition. It's more specific. Bob had given the example before of
The reasoning for that, Pam, is this: if there's a special circumstance where you need to define something differently for one chapter, you could put that in that one chapter. And then, but if you take it out, it's not going to alter things for the rest of the chapter. Or for the rest.
Well,
of the
that's fine, but then I don't think that that part of the legislation should be in this chapter. When that comes up, it will be shown in the chapters in which it applies, not to this chapter. That's suggesting that this chapter can then be altered for any reason.
Well, it can, so long as you put it in the other chapter. You'd have to do it by code.
No, but I thought the point of this chapter was to solidify everything and not create gray areas.
It is. That is the.
I don't know how to make myself clearer. That is a very gray area to say that alternate definitions are going to be accepted.
You've got to allow for circumstances that are beyond what you're looking at the present.
Let's take a look at that. I think I understand how it's confusing.
I understand it's confusing, but it's a necessity.
Yeah.
It's not confusing. It's a concern. It's a concern.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be in this chapter. If this chapter is to solidify definitions, then I don't believe that that statement should be in this chapter at all. Any other classification of specialty definitions to another chapter will then be referenced in those chapters alone. This is, the whole thing is to try to make everything easier for everyone, and that just makes it an open door for another change.
We've been using that a lot. We want a standard definition of person, but we might come to a circumstance where in a particular chapter, we want to write, for the purposes of this chapter alone, person shall mean only a natural person. I don't see why we do that, but that's the sort of thing we're talking about. But you still want the remainder of the code to use the other definition, even though you're using it differently.
So I'm going to say with the definition of person as it stands, there is not that much discrepancy in the 6 definitions that I have before me. And I will tell you folks that I did redline this and I did combine this and I do know what's happening here. I didn't wait for you to make the list for me because I didn't understand any of it. And I'm not an attorney. And as a person of interest, I needed to understand this better. So I know what you've taken out. I know what's disappearing. I know what you're putting in. I know what wasn't there that will be there. It's not what I need help with, but looking at the 6 definitions of person, pretty much 5 out of 6 look the same and they don't look anything like the new one. That's my point. They don't look anything like the new one.
I'm a little confused on that.
It's nice to know you're going to recess this hearing, and we can take this another day.
I still want to know about the verb tense.
But
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Karen Care? You have to unmute, Karen. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the board and particularly our town attorney for all the hard work they're putting into this process. But just listening to the what Steve said about what Mr. D'Agostino said about definitions, I'm wondering if it's possible, this is such a complicated task, if our town attorney or even the board couldn't reach out to someone, not necessarily Mr. D'Agostino, that's really an expert in this area of code and definitions at some point to really get some outside expert advice. Because I think this is a huge, very complicated and necessary job. And it just may be helpful to get, somebody that's a real expert in this definition and code area. Not that you're not an expert, Bob, I'm sure you are.
I just, I'm laughing a little bit because it's, this was supposed to be the easy one. We left the controversial stuff to another round. I'm only going to try to think of what that's going to be like. Yeah, but I'm wondering when would be the appropriate time to do that.
Good point, Karen. We'll discuss that. Very good point. Anybody else? You looking at the other rest of the screen?
I can, and then I also just want to show everybody something.
One thing that I'd like to add, one possibility is, one question that should be answered, not necessarily tonight, is that why are you doing this to begin with? Wouldn't it make, or could it make more sense to repair definitions as they come up? Like, for example, the definition of resident with respect to moorings. That was a problem. You know, it didn't handle the situation correctly, and you fixed it or in the process of fixing it. But why go through the code in one process? You get an idea. I think the last person who commented was, we may need to have not necessarily an expert beyond your expertise, but another set of eyes who is an expert to take a look at it because of the tremendous amount of unforeseen consequences that you can have by changing definitions, whether it's in this round or the next round. So maybe you don't go through this process and just change the code as you run into problems.
With all due respect, you're one of the reasons we're doing this. You brought things up that we're not doing things the way we're supposed to do them. So that's what we're doing.
It's my fault.
It's not you made us aware of things,
All right.
and that's what we're doing.
Then just fix the things I made you aware of.
25 years ago in the, or whatever they did, when they did the last comprehensive plan, they wrote in it that your town code is out of date and you need to do a complete code review. And for 25 years, we've talked about doing it. And this is sort of step one, was sort of this inching into the definitions.
So
the idea is to move through the, basically take a look at the entire code.
Can you repeat that? So 25 years ago,
Whatever
what happened?
the comp plan was.
Our comp, the 1994 plan.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
In the comp plan, it says that, or did it, that the county needs to take a look at the code? Okay.
We did
Doesn't
take a
mean to
look.
do it all at once.
My first 2 years in office, Bob, my first 2 years in office, all we did was address the town code based on the comprehensive plan. We created the nearshore overlay. We adjusted some of the A and AA zones. We restricted, so we addressed zoning in the comprehensive. And it's one of the reasons we need to get the comprehensive plan back in place to finish what we started.
What was the reason again? To do a new comprehensive plan?
Because we started it and we need to finish it.
No.
The
But why
public-
was it started? We have a comprehensive plan.
That's
in
right. And a
1994.
comprehensive plan is supposed to be a living document that you update, that you look at,
Well,
that you see where you are with it. and
then
continue.
you could
I
take-
think the original comprehensive plan was a fabulous document. I
But you
think it's a
didn't.
great document.
It happens to be a great document. It has affordable housing in it. It has the
Yep.
things that you want, the things
Yep.
that we want, no
Mhm.
spot zoning. It
Right.
suggests that. But in the comprehensive plan process that took place, I don't mean to get off topic, but you raised it. They never posted the old comprehensive plan on the website.
Well, it's
And if
available.
you're-
Why do you
Let me
have to,
finish
it's
my sentence.
available.
Let me finish my sentence, because you just said the idea was to update the 1994 comprehensive plan, but we didn't update it. You spent $125,000 on consultants to start from scratch.
No, that's not true. That's
Well,
100%
then why
not
didn't
true.
you just simply take the 1994 plan,
Every-
post it, and ask people what needs to be
everyone involved in the process worked off the original plan. That's where we started.
Yeah.
If you were involved in the process, you started with the original plan.
We also had a tremendous effort 12 years later with the 2007, 2008 effort to rewrite the 94 plan.
Yes.
So update the plan. My thinking, and I think the thinking of the town board was, as we go forward, is they encourage you. I've been to the state meetings where they encourage you every 7 to 10 years to update your comprehensive plan. I think that's a mistake. I think the mistake is it's a living document. You update it as you move forward on a yearly basis. You don't wait 7 years. There are things that come up, so you don't have to tackle the entire plan. The town board should sit down periodically and say, what areas of the comprehensive plan do we need to update? Is it something about housing? Is it something about zoning? Is it something about water? And pick those areas and make them a priority. Put a committee together and update that aspect of the comprehensive plan, as opposed to trying to attack after 10 years. And the other advantage of that is, if it is truly a living document, you are you're using it more frequently, you're referring to it, it's being used as a guide in decision-making, in developing a budget. So that document should be really, when you sit down and formulate your budget each and every year, where are our priorities? Are we in fact putting our money where the comprehensive plan says we should be going? So there's a lot of, I have arguments with people about, oh, it's a piece of paper, where it's this thick, you throw it up on a shelf, 10 years later, you read, that is not, as a former teacher, a curriculum. Do you wait every 10 years to update your curriculum? Not if you're a good teacher. A good teacher updates their curriculum on an annual basis based on the needs of where we're and reprioritizing your subject area and based on feedback that you're getting from other sources other than just yourself.
Okay. I'm not sure I fully comprehend the second part of what you were saying. I'm not sure, for example, that a living constitution, whether a comprehensive plan is like a constitution or not, that's something for a discussion.
Right.
Because maybe there ought to be a vision and that shouldn't change that often. But the first part of what you said, of taking a comprehensive plan that exists and just focusing on things that need to be updated and do it one piece at a time, I think makes eminent sense.
Yes.
That you take the 94 plan and rather than going and trying to tackle everything in it, okay, which can make for a failed process,
right.
Okay, which partly it was, whether whoever was involved, et cetera. No
Not even go
blames.
there.
Exactly. But I think you're absolutely right. I think you should only take if you need to do zoning or you need to do affordable housing, or if they're together, or if there's water or whatever, take a look at the 94 plan. I think it's a brilliant plan. There was a process for the 2003 process, but that didn't end up being a plan. And that wasn't, it wasn't adopted.
It just wasn't adopted.
But this town is currently operating under the January 4th, 1994 plan, or January 11th, 1994 plan. That's the plan that this town currently operates under. So I think you should start with that, post it, and let's do it. And don't go spending another $100,000 on some bunch of consultants from Boston or wherever they were from, which I think led this whole town into wrong directions. The vision statement had nothing to do with the original town. It wasn't an
I
update.
think some of your comments, we're going to take that. under
Okay.
advisement.
I think
Well,
it's-
thank you very much.
A lot of that's very good. The one problem is, I like
Yeah,
most of
please.
what you're saying. The only problem is after 25 years, you've got to do a pretty comprehensive review.
I don't think so. I think if you read the plan, if most people just put it on the website, distribute it on the town, read it. It's so well written. It really is quite
Even if
brilliant.
it's just an analysis of how we're doing with regard to the plan.
But a lot of people don't want this town to change that much. That's one of the things to consider. Do we really want to completely change the town? Do you want a Walmart here?
No.
I mean, no, I think a lot of people would say, no, we don't want to go in that
We
direction.
need to get back on.
But
task
get back
here.
on track.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
work on the
Thank you.
definitions.
Thank you.
Okay. Just for everyone, Amber,
Yeah, while we've been talking, Christina has been working in the background. So I emailed her the two documents that we've been talking about today. There's now a new spot under the meeting section. So
Oh,
if you
yay.
click there, upcoming hearings and pending legislation has been linked in over here. Are you listening, Bob?
Bob, this is for you.
This is for you. So if you go to meetings and agendas, you can see upcoming hearings and pending legislation is the first button before you get to the sessions themselves. And if you click on it, the two documents discussed today are on the bottom, definitions revisions, and then definitions red line. So those are available for everyone to.
Be
take
forgiving
a-
on the red line. I did it over the last 24 hours, so there might be a couple of typos and things in it.
okay.
I think it's clear from all the letters and the people that spoke, there's enough expertise to be able to be helpful to you, Bob. And which shouldn't be just people sending in, bombarding you with all kinds of recommendations. I mean, everybody should submit what they like, but you have some real, I was surprised myself by the expertise of many of the people who are attorneys and things. and particularly like Al, who obviously worked in this area for a long time. So you should be able to draw on them to look at a lot of the stuff that comes in, so you're not just loaded, it doesn't all fall on you, assuming people are willing to volunteer and do it.
I think your point is well taken, Patrick, and I'll end, hopefully end on this. I would encourage people that feel comfortable and have that expertise to in fact, be in touch with our town attorney. You have the documents available to you. Keep them constructive, keep them coming. And then after some of those things are changed or modified in some way, shape, or form, personally, I would be in favor of maybe, Bob, even if we got some of those, again, a manageable group of people, 5 or 6 people in the room with you, after you've collected that, go over that, be as transparent as you possibly can, explain, have an exchange. I think you could come up with, probably a pretty good resolution there. So I would encourage people to participate. Let's keep it constructive. Let's keep it timely. Again, we're in the holiday season now. So I don't know how much is going to be done before the end of the year, but I think we could start the process. And I think once January comes, I think then, we start to put this stuff together, maybe meet as a group and see if we can get.
I'd say whether we wait to see with what comments we get from who.
Sure.
And we
sure.
work off that as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to recess this meeting. Not going to close it. And we're not going to reconvene the Myers hearing because we're waiting to, we met with the Myers last
Yes.
Tuesday at the work session, and they were going to get us some information. So we'll wait on that one. And I think same with the Weber, with the Weber mooring application, because we're waiting. Okay, so we'll reconvene the regular meeting, and we're only going to act on a few of these.
We are?
We're gonna-
Rosen.
Got one ready.
Rosen
Roseanne.
Dock, yes.
There's one ready.
Which one? Okay, should I read the
Oh, we
whole thing?
closed that one. That's right.
Really? All right, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Read the whole thing? This will empty the room. real quick.
Yes,
Just saying.
and the
have fair
septic,
warning.
the septic requirements also got.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't
Okay.
get that one ready, but.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right. I'll give it another day.
Yeah.
Okay, whereas Elaine and Ellen Rosen, 153 North Ram Island Drive, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove and dispose of an existing lower platform. Whoa, folks, thank you. Existing lower platform, install an 8,000-pound boat lift in location of lower platform, elevate the existing dock 2 feet, redeck with untreated lumber, and provide for water and electric. And whereas a public hearing was duly held today on the 3rd day of December 2021 for all interested persons to be heard in favor or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Part 617, Section 617.10 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and Chapter 60 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, notice is hereby given that the town board as lead agency has determined that the project will not have significant effect on the environment and a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. Environmental review status pursuant to Chapter 60 of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, Type 2. Reasons for supporting this determination. The proposed redecking will not cause an obstruction of the navigable channels or an interference with navigation. Will not adversely affect the public's right to use town waters or land under town waters. 3, will not adversely affect shellfishing grounds, other aquatic wildlife which may exist in the immediate area. 4, will not adversely affect the quality of tidal waters, shorelines, or beaches. 5, will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent residents. And be it further resolved, the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned construction as per specifications filed after said applicant pursuant to Section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island has filed with the town clerk a certificate that the owner has at least $300,000 liability insurance on the location and operations covered by said permit, a copy of the contractor's current home improvement contractor's license, and a certificate from the contractor performing the operations covered by said permit that said contractor has an owner/contractor's policy issued in favor of the town of Shelter Island for the liability limits of at least $500,000 covering the operations of the contractor pursuant to said permit, and be it further resolved that said operation shall be completed within 1 year from the date of issuance of this permit. Said permit is subject to the recommended limitations and any requirements that may be necessary under the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Army Corps of Engineers, and any other agencies having jurisdiction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You
Okay.
want to adopt the other one?
You have it?
Well, just adopt it as
Yeah.
local law number 12, because that's
Okay.
what it would be,
Okay,
as was presented before. Because you
okay,
didn't make any changes.
right,
No.
okay.
No.
Okay.
So we'll make a motion that we're going to adopt local law number 12,
Yes, yeah,
a revision of the septic requirements
yeah.
as amended. I'll make that motion
as
Second.
presented.
As
Yeah.
presented.
as presented, not amended. Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, now we'll open it to the public. Anybody? Lori?
The public notice for today and on the town website says there was supposed to be a hearing for local law to create the sanitary flow transfer.
Yeah, that was, I don't know why that was on. It wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah,
It was,
what was posted on the website said that was, that we,
Yeah,
3 weeks ago, but
Final hearing, 12/3.
yeah, although.
never set
last
that
3
hearing.
We
weeks
get set
ago-
last time.
Yeah.
we didn't actually
So
set
that
it.
was an error.
Typo too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then it'll be reset for a different.
We
date.
haven't set
We
it
never
yet.
set the hearing.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay.
So at some future point in time. So we should get that amended on the town website to at least get that language off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Lori,
Anybody else?
Kathy Kenny.
Ambrose, you have anything? Okay.
We've got,
In the interest of time, can we submit written comments on this?
Yes,
Proposal?
yes. Please
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the CPF, my view in reading this was from a CPF point of view. And I'm wondering if the CPF could meet, I guess, with the town attorney, maybe with the supervisor, before you put this on for a hearing next time. Is that possible?
Sure.
Because, it's funny, if anything else, Lori Beard-Raymond demonstrated to me that if we consult the appropriate committees, the appropriate people, we can save ourselves a lot of time in putting this forward. So I think she demonstrated that, some input into whether it's the definitions or whatever. I think the same applies to this piece of legislation. So if you could meet with us, our calendar is posted on the website, whether it's by Zoom or otherwise, I think that would be helpful.
Good, thank you.
Yay?
We'll do.
Yay? Okay.
Will
Thank you,
do.
Jerry. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no other hands?
Wait, let me check in a second.
there isn't a second
Oh,
screen.
no more seconds.
People have jumped.
Okay. Anybody else? Julia, you got anything for us?
No.
Yes, that's a no.
No.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks very much.
Motion to
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
got that.